Oh, these people will not listen to me. Once I get that promotion, I'm finally going to be able to get things done around here. No, you're not. What we need to understand is that there is a difference between authority and influence. Authority is assigned, influence is earned. And whenever we start shifting our mindset and understanding that we need to lean into influence, your entire leadership world begins to unlock. Many years ago, I was a part of an acquisition and integration, and one of my roles was to relocate down to Corpus Christi for a year and lead all aspects of the integration. Now, this was a $500 million acquisition, so there was a lot of pressure, a lot of eyes on the integration team and operations and making sure that we got it right. At the time, I was only leading IT and HR in the project management office, but I moved down, and after about 4 or 5 months, I had started building relationships and we were moving things along. And one of the managers is very knowledgeable. He understood a lot of aspects of the business, but I could sense that he was frustrated. He kept struggling. He was having a hard time getting his team to get things across the finish line, getting other teams to do the things they needed to do so he could get his team to do the things they needed to do. And he pulled me into his office one day and said, "Hey, Sean, I need some guidance. I need some advice." I was like, "All right, cool. Yeah, what's going on?" He's like, "Well, actually, I would like to propose me becoming the director of this location." I said, "Oh, okay. Well, tell me more." He's like, "Well, we've been struggling a lot with getting all of these things across the finish line, and nobody here is listening to me. I know exactly what we need to do, but we just can't get them there." I said, "Oh, okay." And I asked him if after the past 4 or 5 months of me being down there, if I had been able to positively affect change and actually move things along. He said, "Well, yeah, absolutely." And I said, "Okay, cool. That's good. That's great feedback. Does anybody here report to me?" And then it hit him. Aside from a few HR people, nobody there reported to me. I let him sit with it for a moment. And I said, "Well, if nobody here reports to me, but I'm able to affect change and move things forward, tell me why you think you need a promotion to be able to do it." He said, "Well, they just won't listen to me." And what I shared with him is that he needs to understand developing skills around influencing others that do not report to you to get things done, in my opinion, is a prerequisite before stepping in to that next senior leadership role. So a lot of people actually get this backwards. They think that once they get the promotion, then people will listen, and that's not how it works. Maybe you can achieve some short-term results by leading with an iron fist, but it's not sustainable. You will end up running off the people on your team because, quite frankly, people don't want to work for an asshole. And I'm not saying that that's what he was, but what I am saying is you need to be focused on learning how to influence others before the promotion. So let's talk through a few ways that we can make that happen. The very first is credibility. You have to know what you're talking about, and not just know what you're talking about in your domain. You need to actually take time to understand what is going on over here. What is going on over here? And not just at a cursory high level. You need to dive deep to really understand. Because the more time you spend in businesses, you start to realize that IT and HR and supply chain and manufacturing and engineering, they're not all of these individual silos. They all interconnect, almost like a web of business units and teams. So we need to take time to understand what's going on in all of these other domains. Relationships. You have to build trust before anything or anybody is going to take you seriously. And trust, these are skills that hopefully you've been able to develop outside of the business world. They absolutely carry through. Building trust comes down to sitting down and listening to people, being kind, genuinely caring about the things that are important to them. And when you do that enough, and you provide enough value to people and support them enough, they will immediately start trusting you more and more. Last big one that I want to talk on is emotional control. You have to stay steady under pressure. You cannot pop off and start yelling at people. You cannot come in the conference room, get pissed off, and throw a water bottle at somebody where they have to duck and it hits the wall behind you. Yes, those things actually happened. Not in this particular company, but I've experienced that firsthand, where an IT manager years ago lost his cool, came in yelling, throwing water bottles. It was absolutely ridiculous. And also, if we kind of play that out, for years, he had the reputation of the guy who couldn't keep his cool, and nobody trusted him. When you are able to stay steady under pressure, people are going to trust you because they're going to know what to expect if they're in the room with you, if they're working on a project with you. The next thing that I want to touch on is speaking in outcomes, not opinions. Replace I think with actual measurable change. And yes, you do need data. You need to understand what is your baseline, where are you going, but whenever you start understanding those things, and instead of just, I think maybe we go this way, that doesn't really inspire confidence. But when you can speak to, this is where we've been historically, this is where we're going, and here's how we are going to get there, people want to follow that. People want to follow the structure that you are able to create when you present change in that way. And yes, you can tie it to revenue and risk and efficiency or culture, all of those things. Yes, those are important, especially when you understand things around culture, very important to the HR team. Things around risk, very important to auditors. I understand risk is important, but auditors just wear me out. The big takeaway here is clarity builds authority. Clarity builds your ability to influence people because they know that you've put the thought into it, that you are putting a concerted effort in making sure that everything unfolds exactly the way it should. Now, this next one is going to be a little bit more tactical. I want to talk about building alignment before every single meeting. When companies get busy, especially in oil and gas, when the price of oil is doing this, everything turns into just this frantic beehive. Everybody's scrambling. Meetings just start dropping on your calendar. Nobody has time to prepare for the meeting at all. So what you have to do is actually spend time the night before or carve out time on your calendar before every meeting. Give yourself 10 to 15 minutes. Read through the agenda, read through the reports, because the last thing you want is to show up, hey, where are we at? What's going on? And then the people that actually did their homework are frustrated because they're having to bring you up to speed. It is ridiculous how easy it is to show up and look like an absolute rock star because you spent 15 minutes reading the materials before the meeting. Never try to win over a cold room. So whenever you go into the room, if you have been prepared and you understand the role that every person in the room is playing on any sort of a project or initiative, it makes it so much easier for you to guide the conversation and move through it quickly. This next one I want to talk about is really around psychological safety and permission. And what I mean by that is if you walk into a room and people are afraid of what you are going to say, or they know, well, Sean's coming in here, he's going to tell us what he wants us to do, it doesn't always work well. People usually shut down, they show up, they do the bare minimum, and then they go about their day. Instead, try walking into a room and being the last person to speak. Listen to what everybody else in the room has to say, even if you know exactly what the answer is. Solicit that feedback from the others in the room. When you take this approach, you will start to hear things that you didn't realize. Because everybody in the room, hopefully they're all experts at what they do, and they see things and they know things that you don't. When they share those issues or challenges or things that they're aware of, acknowledge the constraints. Oh, I know time is tight. I know you're short-staffed right now. Would it be helpful if we push this due date a week. Would that be helpful? So what you're doing is acknowledging the constraint or issue or challenge that they are dealing with. You're demonstrating some sort of understanding of the pressure that they're under, and then creating an environment to give them a little bit of breathing room. You don't always have the luxury of doing that. However, this is part of being a leader. If you extend a deadline by a week, you need to feel comfortable going up the chain of command and saying, hey, we just can't make it happen right now. What we're going to do, instead of this due on Friday, we are going to get it knocked out and completed by next Thursday. Cool? Perfect. This is all part of being a leader. When you do all of these things, when you listen, when you acknowledge their challenges, when you create an environment where they have a little bit of breathing room, all of a sudden, they are going to trust you, they are going to respect you, and they are going to be more open and amenable to having conversations with you when something comes up that they don't agree with. You've done all of these things to lay the foundation, and then when you have to push something forward that not everybody is in agreement with, they will at least understand why. They will at least trust you and know that, okay, well, maybe Sean sees something that I don't yet. Now, there's one other thing that I want to get into is there will be times when influence fails. It is the unfortunate reality of the world and of business. When this happens, you then have to start assessing the culture. Are you in an environment where you can succeed? In some companies, the culture is too toxic. It is too far gone for you to be able to influence change in a positive and meaningful way. You can try to adjust your strategy. You can try to approach things in a different way. But if you spend a year or two or more and you are just beating your head against a wall, you've had conversations with your personal board of advisors or mentors or coaches, and you just can't move the needle, we have to acknowledge that sometimes the environment is the problem. That is a topic for another day. So hopefully this has given you a little bit of insight. Whenever I think about this and think about all the success that I had in terms of career progression and stepping into all the other teams that I was able to lead over the years, the biggest turning point for me was recognizing that I didn't need the title to get things done. Hey guys, obviously this type of content is near and dear to my heart. Whenever we think about being able to influence and inspire others, this is not an easy thing to do. Now, it's also important for us to figure out what are all the levers that we can lean into and pull to be able to influence others. And one of the big things that I've discovered is that building your personal brand can help out in a significant way. I speak at a lot of events and do workshops, and one of the things that I like to do is bring this little booklet. It's like 10, 12 pages, entirely focused on building your personal brand. It's very tactical, step by step. If any of you want a copy of this, leave a comment down below with your contact info or shoot me a message on LinkedIn or your social media platform of choice, and we will get you a digital copy so that you can check it out and start focusing on building your personal brand.